Joan Sackerson, and I'm with Travel Backroads. And I'm interviewing today a friend of mine, a new friend from Wessington Springs. And Loree, welcome today. You were willing to share this idea about the family farm, and you kind of got my curiosity piqued about economic development directors and how in rural we really need to start thinking about our meat and our local farms. Can you share a little bit about that with me, with everyone we're listening?
I can. If you've noticed, if you've been on social media whatsoever, I'm sure you've noticed a lot of articles are floating around about the beef producers and the markets. The grocery shelves are dry. There's hardly anything on there. And then so the demand is really high for beef right now, but yet our local producers, our local guys that go to the sale barn, and guys and gals that go to the sale barn and want a fair price on their cattle, when their calves, when they take them there, they're not getting that fair price. A lot of them are losing money on their calves when they take them.
I know it's a passion of yours, and what's happening, and I've seen those on Facebook.
Well, it's frustrating because even for me, I come from a family of cattle producers. I think about it, and I think about when my ancestors came here from Norway, from Ireland, from, when they came here, and they were looking for a better life. They were looking for land. They were looking for a place to raise their family. They were tired of being at the mercy of the government, of, they wanted that better life. And so they came here and they worked hard for that. Yeah. And now we're at a point, and like for my family, they've got the family farm, and many others around here too. They've got the family farm. They've been passing it down from generation to generation. And now we're at a point where, can it get passed to the next generation? And this generation has got a lot of pressure on them. And the risk of losing it is really high right now, because kind of take a step back. There's 3 meat packers, I believe it's 3, that are controlling 81% of the market. When you think of the United States as a whole, we are actually the #1 importer of beef in the world. Yet our beef producers aren't getting a fair price because we're not using their beef. There's meat at the grocery store. Just because that meat at the grocery store says product of the USA on it, or made in the USA, or packaged in the US, it does not mean that you're eating beef that was born and raised and slaughtered in the US. They import beef from Brazil. They're importing it from Africa, Mexico, and Canada. I mean, they're importing beef from all over the place, and it's coming here. And so long as they repackage it in the United States, so we need to really, as consumers, we need to really pay attention to what we're picking up at the grocery store. A lot of us in rural areas take it for granted because we get beef. We have beef in our freezer that we get from our ranchers, or local farmers and ranchers. And you get outside of that area, a lot of people just go to the store. They just go to the store and pick it up, and so they don't realize what they're getting. Mm-hmm. You buy your clothing at the store. You can look at the tag and see exactly where it came from. You buy a chicken, you can see exactly where that chicken came from.
True.
You go to pork, you go to beef, and there's nothing. You don't know where that came from. Oh, back in the early 1900s, there was what was it, Stockyards Act, Beef Stockyards Act, something like that. That came out that was supposed to regulate stop the monopoly of the meat packers, to be able to, there was oversight to the meat packers. So they got the farmers, they were guaranteed a fair price. I don't know what's happened in the world since. I mean, there's just been a lot of politics and a lot of money at play. And so it's trickling down. And I feel like we're at a breaking point right now, because the country of origin labeling got repealed a few years ago. Okay. Which means which is exactly what I was just talking about, how there's no more label on there that states this was made, born, raised, and slaughtered in the United States, or where this meat came from. And that the consumers have no idea then, so the consumers aren't necessarily buying American beef. If we could change that, have that country of origin labeling on there, and when somebody goes to the store If they could see, hey, this is out of Brazil, this one's out of the United States, I think a lot more people would start picking up that USA beef.
Well, I think myself, when I see that tag, from the United States or US meat or whatever it says, I believe it's from the United States.
There's no intent to offend any of the other countries in the quality of their meat. It comes down to economics. We're the United States of America. We have to take care of our people that are producing the food. We need to be self-sufficient, and especially now it's becoming so obvious with this COVID-19 that when the shipments in and out are slowing down. I mean, everything's slowed down at the grocery store.
Okay, Loree, well, my next question kind of is to you, is there a growing a movement per se about this, the meat as well as the packers and the small family farm?
Yes, we're actually myself and Anita Holan from Kimball. We've ignited her passion too for this, because Campbell's a real community, also like Springs, and both communities have a lot of ties together.
Yeah.
And in Wessington Springs, we've started with there's a Foothills Cattle Producers group that's working really hard to raise awareness to this issue. Cool. But as far as Anita and I are concerned, we're really trying to get a grassroots effort going to get economic development professionals involved in this, to say, hey, you need to pay attention. This does affect, especially in rural South Dakota, this affects our communities big time. If we lose our family farms, if we lose our people, if they can't make it work and they have to move to Sioux Falls, Rapid City, the bigger, even Mitchell or Huron, if they have to leave and go take a job somewhere, that's going to affect our schools, that's going to affect our nursing home, that's going to affect our hospital, our grocery store, the cafes uptown. It's going to affect all of it. The sales tax revenue coming into the city. This is so economically driven that we need to pay attention. We're rural South Dakota, and we need to pay attention to this, because this has just huge impacts on our areas if something doesn't change. We can't, from a personal standpoint, I don't want to see the family farm fall. The small family farms, the larger ones can have, they've got a little more stability. The smaller ones that rely on that cash price at the sale barn, they've got to be able to make it work. And we need them too. It's, I appreciate the ones that have grown and had fortunate to have that growth, but we still need our smaller producers too.
Are you kind of starting kind of another kind of an effort as far as grassroots? I mean, if somebody sees this and they're interested, can they get a hold of you? Or
please do. Yes, please do. If you have questions regarding any of it, get a hold of either one of us. We need to do something. We've started working with some community development people, also the Governor's Office of Economic Development, to try to start to initiate some change. We're meeting, trying to discuss more with producers themselves, what they need, what they feel will help them, to peg down exactly what can make a difference for them, and to start taking those little steps. We're not going to change. This is such a huge topic. We're not going to change it overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. But if we can start initiating some change and getting consumers educated, we really need to educate people on this issue. So when they go to the store, go to your local grocery store. I'm saying, when it comes to your meat, making that conscious effort to ask, is this American beef? Go to your local locker, find your local farmer, who's got the cattle. Ask him, how do I buy a beef from you? When it comes to your meat, making that conscious effort to ask, is this American beef? Go to your local locker, find your local farmer, who's got the cattle. Ask him, how do I buy a beef from you? They would be more than happy to talk with you.
Well, the flip side of that, though, which would be a concern of mine, is really, we want our stores, right? We want our grocery stores. We want our small town grocery stores to be back in this, because that takes money out of their pockets, correct?
Yes,
So then
correct.
the tax money, they're not going to go to our streets and fixing our potholes or our creating gutters and curbs, but we really are going to cut them out if we go that direction, and we shouldn't have to. It should be a collaboration, right?
Right. And in Washington Springs here, we're fortunate. Our grocer, Ryan Jensen, he actually went to Omaha when they had a gathering down there to get involved. He's been very proactive in this.
Great.
And yeah, he himself is very educated. So in Springs, I don't feel like we're having, I think he's making an effort on the storefront to make sure he's getting that American beef in there. My concern is kind of the larger cities, the big box stores, those are my concerns. Your small grocers, especially like in town here, he's very involved, but in other communities, to get them involved, the grocer involved, to understand what's going on with the meat department, then knowing where that comes from. It's huge, but a lot of consumers shop at the big box stores. And how do you begin to educate them to understand there's a reason there's a reason it's cheap. There's a reason it's cheaper than what you can get at your local grocer. There's a reason that it's cheaper than what you can get at your local locker. How do we educate them the backlash of that, and how just because it's cheap, you're saving a buck or two here, doesn't, how does that fall back to your community? How is that in those bigger cities, even just the local family farm that's growing that meat and on their own, and then you're not buying it? How do we bridge that gap? How do we educate people about that?